this is from the perspective of you've already written your goals and now you're trying to figure out what pacing looks like for those goals, both in practice and in a meet. There will be another video. There is another video on creating goals, which is just as important, if not more so. And that will give us an idea of how we should get to the goal time that we want. And then this is how do we execute in practice and in a race the times that we need to go in order to hit the time that we've come up with. So with that being said, we'll start with 200s. With the 200s, it's broken up into 450s. Things that we want to focus on, not only in the 200, but in all the races. So I'll write it over here. Things to think about. Okay. Some things to think about. Your starts. Okay. Fatigue, especially in the back half of any race. Starts, fatigue, and calculation. Okay, how we do the math. These are probably the three biggest things to think about while you're creating your goal paces. And with the 200s is a really good example of how to factor these in. So we'll go ahead and get into that now. So let's say that for a 200, we'll say a 200 freestyle, the swimmer has a goal time of 2 minutes. That makes the math easy. So conventional knowledge, maybe to someone who isn't familiar with the sport, is going to want to break this up. Okay, 30, 30, 30, 30. And as a club swimmer, as a college swimmer, I start with this template. Okay, this isn't what you finish with, but it's a good way to start just so you have a map of what it looks like if it was just perfectly even, you were pushing off a wall and you didn't get tired. Okay, you would be 30 across the board ideally, and you'd hit that goal time of a 2 minute. Now, where we switch it up, okay, we got to factor in that the start is going to be around 1 to 2 seconds faster than what our pace would be, just because we're going off the block, we're energized, we have that adrenaline pumping, it's early in the race. So what I like to do typically is subtract 2 seconds. 2 seconds from that time. Okay. And now I have, if you notice, now if I did 28, 30, 30, 30, I'd be at 158, which is good, that's under our pace, but I want us to have the pace that we need to go to hit that number as a minimum threshold. So what we do is I will typically keep the 30. Okay, I'll keep that second 50 the same, because now we're settling into the race. We still have energy, but we didn't get the start. Okay, so we're past the start, but we're before the fatigue. Okay, we're past the start before the fatigue, so it's pretty much right on where we should be, and we still have those 2 seconds. And there's 2 different ways you can go about this. The way that I'll typically go, based off the way I want my swimmers to swim the 200, is I'll actually have them keep that 30 for the third one. How we teach the 200, and how I specifically teach the 200, how I was raised to swim it, is that our third 50 should be our max effort 50. When we hit the wall going into that third 50, we should basically be going all out at that point, making our move, getting into the front of the pack. It's our belief that anyone can finish a 200 strong, but you at least got to put yourself in a position to win it. And with that being said, that means that typically I'll just backload those last 2 seconds onto that last 50. So with the way that I train my swimmers, we try to stick to this pattern. Okay, so 28, 30, 30, 32. There can be some slight variation. If you're really nitpicking, you could go with a 30.5 and a 31.5, which would still even out to 2 minutes. You're just adding a half second to this one and subtracting a half second to this one. That's perfectly fine as well. But the principle is that third 50 should be a high effort 50, and it should never be slower than our fourth 50. Our fourth 50 should be our slowest 50, because that means that we really emptied the tank and gave it all we got. In my group, we call it guts. We want to have guts on that fourth 50. It's not going to feel good, but hitting the wall with your hand in first place will. So, when we have our breakdown of what we want to go, this would be ideally what we want to go in a race. Okay, so either 28, 30, 30, 32 or 28, 30, 30.5, 31.5. Afterwards, we would figure out what we want to pace in practice, if it was a 50 or if it was a 100. And for that, typically, I'll take the faster of the two. If they're different, I'll take the faster of the two middle 50s. You could average them if you want, but typically I like to keep it simple. I'll just take the faster of the two middle 50s. So around a 30, okay, or faster. And note for this is 30.0, okay? So this would be 30.0 or faster. So ideally we want to see 29.9, 29.8, we want to be under 30. For 100, you can either add the two up, or double the second 50. I'll go ahead and just add the two up. You see they're the same here, but let's say if I was using the 30 and the 30.5, you'd want to be around somewhere around a minute to a minute 0.5, and again that's or faster. Okay, the idea is to be under the pace. If we get under the pace and we can get good at training under that pace, that means that we'll be under that goal time. That goal time is that threshold that we want, and we want to make sure we're not pacing where we're at, we're pacing where we're going, and we want to go below that goal time. For hundreds, it's generally the same principle. If we said that we wanted to go a minute in a certain 100, again, conventional knowledge would put us around 15 for each 25. However, for this specific race, it's going to be more like a 13, 15, and then we'll say 15, and then we have 2 seconds left. You can either do 15, 17, or you can do 16, 16. And it's kind of up to you how you decide to figure out those last two 50s. If you're someone who has a really hard time dying at the end of a race, this may not be so high. You may be more even here. If you're someone who really likes to go out strong, but you really hurt at the end, this may be more true to form. And again, for those middle 25s, you're around a 15. If I was breaking this down, if you're doing a 50 pace off the block, okay, I would probably want it to be a 28 or faster, okay? 50 pace off block, 28 or faster. If it was a 50 pace off the wall, I'll typically take either these middle two or the last two. And for the sake of training purposes, it's probably better to do that middle 50, but you can do whichever way you want. If this is a 30 and this is a 32, if you want to cut down the middle and say 31, that would be fine. But typically speaking, I would say take those middle two, and you would want to be 30, or faster. 30 or faster would be ideal. Okay. And again, this is all about making sure that what we're pacing, being under that, putting us in a position to not only hit that goal pace, but go under it. For 500s and above, I would say, generally, let's say you're doing 1,000 and your goal time was 10 minutes. I would just break it down per 100. And for this one, it's a pretty easy calculation. It'd be about a minute per. Generally, I would just go with this as your pace. If it was a 50, you'd want to go 30s. If it was 200s pace, obviously you would want to go 2 minute. Generally, just sticking with the division in a race like this for your 500 and your 1,000 is good, because this will be the average time you'll go. The first couple hundreds may be a little bit faster. The last couple hundreds will be a little bit slower. This is pretty an all-purpose method for getting the correct pace for these longer races. Hey guys, so first off, I want to shout out my Wave swimming family in Raleigh and Cary, North Carolina. They've kind of been the inspiration behind this whole series that we're doing, trying to make sure that we can provide more information to our swimmers. My practice specifically, we only get an hour and a half each day, and a lot of that needs to be dedicated to swimming. So using 21st century platforms in order to share information share swimming knowledge, not only within our team, but to the swimming world at large, I think only enhances and only improves the sport. At the end of the day, what I tell my kids is these are all tools for your tool belt. And at the end of the year, you're going to be asked to build a house out of your season. And becoming a smarter athlete, becoming an intelligent swimmer through goal paces, knowing how to swim races, it's just another edge that you have. It's another tool in your tool belt that you can use at the end of the year to really execute and hit the goals that you've worked so hard all season to try to achieve. So hope you guys enjoyed. Look out for videos in the future. Ought to be fun. See you guys.